So Donald Trump on the campaign trail was talking about pardoning the J6ers. But it was clarified by JD Vance and others in the admin that he would under no circumstances pardon the violent offenders. That means people who had directly assaulted police officers, those who had smashed windows to breach and get into the Capitol, and those who had directly planned the violent overthrow of the U.S. government. Because there were Proud Boys and certain people who had actually planned it out before the event, and there are documents clearly laying out how in their Discord groups they would refer to the White House as the Winter Palace, which will be stormed, XYZ. And so these individuals would not be covered by the pardon. If you were somebody that waddled into the White House, into the Capitol building after all the police lines fell, maybe you would get pardoned. If you were somebody who, went into an area that was restricted that you weren't supposed to. If you were somebody who, I don't know, took a pen out of Nancy Pelosi's desk, these types of things, which are still not good, but they're not assaulting police officers, being the people who actually beat down the cops and broke through the line. Somebody who permanently wounded a cop, crushed a cop, or either stormed the Capitol, smashed the windows to get into the Capitol, or engaged in some sort of planning. These two things are removed from each other. How far removed? You can make a judgment for yourself, but I would say significantly far removed. So the idea was Trump would describe these people as a group as political prisoners and not get into the detail of, well, which one is a political prisoner and which one is a thug. And then JD Vance and the rest of the gang would come in afterwards and clean up his mess for him. Oh no, the president of the United States would not pardon violent offenders. We're tough on crime. And how could we advertise ourselves as tough on crime and tough on the violent criminals, and that we're going to go around getting all the rapists and murderers and people who threaten the security of our country, if immediately upon entering the White House, one of the first things we do within 24 hours is pardon a bunch of people who took actions that led to the deaths of American police officers and wounded American police officers and stormed the Capitol of the United States and planned the overthrow of the United States government. I mean, any of these things are crimes that could land you years in prison deservedly. Absolutely deservedly. But instead, what we got was Donald Trump pardoning everyone and him dealing with the real scandals of today's age, the auto pen. So he pardons every single J6er, from the Capitol stormers to the planners to the cop beaters to the ones chanting, "Hang the Vice President of the United States." Every single one gets pardoned outside of the promise that was made by his campaign on the campaign trail. And he doesn't just break that promise eventually, he breaks that promise within 24 hours of taking the White House. Now, those within the movement might say that this is him delivering on the promise to go after the political prisoners. But if you're beating cops and trying to overthrow the government, you're not a political prisoner. You're a traitor. So what now? Now, I already think that there's some things that are settled. This has a demonstrably negative effect when it comes to disencouraging this type of actions in the future. If people can look back and say, oh, remember all those people who tried to overthrow the government were pardoned, maybe I can get away with it. All those people who assaulted those Capitol police officers because they didn't like the outcome of the election got away with it, maybe I can get away with it. This is something that I already knew was going to have a demonstrably bad impact. And I think that it's continuing to have a bad impact as many of these J6ers feel bold and defiant and almost as if they're stronger than they've ever been. And they feel like they could get away with more than they ever could. But I was also scared more immediately with the actual individuals themselves. Because if you just storm the United States Capitol and then were pardoned for all of your crimes in relation to it, What is the message that you're receiving from that? And we got to remember, this is not a normal sample size of the population. This is a sample size of the people who'd be willing to storm the U.S. Capitol because they believe that the United States is being stolen and that the election was faked in order to steal it from Mr. Trump. So we're not going off of a normal sample size. We're going off of quite a crooked one. So these people get pardoned. These people go out into the world. And then these people start committing crimes, getting rearrested, and people start dying. Let's just go through a few of these as we talk about what we thought was an inevitable outcome, because when you give a blanket pardon to over like thousands of people and you don't look at any other finer detail, because at the end of the day, they were loyal to you, so you're going to go be loyal to them. This is the outcome. Justice Department strips J6 references from court paper and punishes prosecutors who filed it. This was what made me revisit and go check on how many people had actually been involved in crimes. Because recently, there were Justice Department lawyers who filed documents referring to the Jan 6 riots as a riot and as a mob when successfully bringing charges against those who committed crimes. But pardoning the people was not enough. You really want to send a message of who you stand with? Go after those who stood for law and order in D.C. And so those two people who filed in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia, who filed these paperwork and said that it was a mob. By the way, a crowd of people chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," smashing windows, storming the Capitol, that's a mob, right? But for calling it what it is, for telling the truth, they were removed from their jobs, they were locked out of their government devices, and they were told they were going to be put on leave on Wednesday, shortly after they filed a sentencing moratorium. Not moratorium, memorandum. The one where they refer to it as a mob of rioters. So they refer to it as a mob of rioters. You're put on leave. How dare you, the successful prosecutors who knows the case in and out, call the mob of rioters a mob of rioters. You're going to be put on leave. You're going to be locked out of your offices. You're not allowed to say that. Well, then here's a bunch of other things you're not allowed to say. Taylor Torrento, pardoned J6er, arrested near Obama's home. Sentenced to time served. By the way, this kind of buries the... It's not just that he was arrested near his home. He was arrested near his home after recording a live stream where he was saying, "I got to take the shot. I only get one shot," as he's going near Obama's home, trying to assassinate the man. After, of course, making a separate credible bomb threat as of course any sane and normal and pardonable individual would. But that's just Taylor. That's just one guy. Then let's talk about Matthew. So here's Matthew Huddle. Okay? Matthew Huddle got stopped in Indiana after storming the Capitol and involving himself in the violence on J6. He gets pardoned. He gets sent out. He gets told, not only are you innocent, you're a victim. You're a victim of political persecution. You are a political prisoner. Many of these J6ers have used that label to fundraise, to make money, to start podcasts, to make careers off of their betrayal of their country. This man didn't make a career, though, because Matthew Huddle was unstable. Matthew Huddle got involved in a police stop with officers, and then after the officer finds out that he should not be driving because he is driving on a suspended license, Matthew Huddle tells the officer, "Sir, I'm on probation. Like, you can't, please, sir. Please, sir, we can't do this. We can't do this." And then after that, he makes a run for his car, for a gun. The rest is history.
You are at a felony status for driving while suspended. So today you are going to come with me.
Well, I can't.
You're going to have to, okay? You're going to come with me today, all right?
No, I can't go to jail for this, sir.
You're going to have to come.
Can I get a ride?
No.
Are you sure? I'll violate my...
Just listen to me, okay? Number one, it's a felony offense. There's no leeway with felonies in the state of Indiana. Now, maybe if it was a misdemeanor offense, I could work something out with you, but it's not a misdemeanor. It's a felony.
Do you think there might be a problem if, you storm the Capitol, you get away with it, you get a slap on the wrist, you're told don't worry about it, you're held to no responsibility whatsoever? Now, his first instinct here is, can you just give me a ride? Can I just get away with it? And now that it's not happening, panic sets in.
Oh, there's no leeway with felonies in the state of Indiana. Now, maybe if it was a misdemeanor offense, I could work something out with you, but it's not a misdemeanor. It's a felony offense. Okay? So that's why I can't work with you today with it. Okay? I understand your circumstances, but you understand that you can't drive. Okay? So your driving has resulted into this situation. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do, all right, is I'm going to put your information right here for a sec. I want you to turn around and put your hands on you. Don't you do it, buddy. No.
I'm shooting myself.
No.
Did you hear what he said? He said, I'm going to shoot myself. I'm going to shoot myself is the words he used, which I didn't mean that. YouTube, I didn't mean that. Man, he said that. This is somebody who was unstable, who didn't know how to deal with the consequences of their own actions, and after being bailed out of probably the worst crime they had ever committed, they did not change their behavior when it comes to, I don't know, basic respect of the law, and then when facing consequences, panicked, catastrophized, and then led to their own destruction. If this man was not pardoned, he would still be alive, and this officer would not have a body on his record. That was Matthew. Here's a different J6 rider. This is the one, you might remember this guy. This guy is a classic. I don't know if you guys remember him. He wore the Camp Auschwitz hoodie. You guys might have forgotten this, but this guy had a hoodie that said Camp Auschwitz, work brings freedom. Not a nice hoodie. I don't think that was with the Balenciaga catalog. I'm not much of a fashion guy, but I think this might be past me. He was arrested on animal attack charges. Yes, animal attack charges. J6 rider seen in photos wearing a Camp Auschwitz hoodie inside the U.S. Capitol has been arrested in Virginia on charges stemming from a dog attack. He was arrested Thursday following an investigation into an animal-related incident. Parker was charged with 1 count of animal attack resulting from owner's disregard for human life, a felony. He was also charged with attacking while at large with no city license. Okay, so a dog attack from Mr. Camp Auschwitz. I don't know if I would have pardoned the Camp Auschwitz guy. I think if I saw that hoodie, I would think maybe undeserving of my mercy. Houston man pardoned by Trump, arrested on child charges. Andrew Tate. Is that Freudian? There's a little Andrew Tate. Under 8. Received a 6-year sentence for assaulting officers on January 6. He was arrested Thursday on outstanding charges of soliciting a minor. Well, if you can get away with overthrowing the government, you can get away with some gross exploitation. A Houston man who was recently pardoned by President Trump in his role for J6 2021 insurrection has been arrested on an outstanding child crimes charge. Andrew Tate, 36, was taken into custody on Thursday after spending more than 2 weeks as a fugitive. On the run. He had previously been charged with online solicitation of a minor stemming from a 2016 incident in which he allegedly sent explicit messages to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. The Scott Ritter The Scott Ritter take. Pulled a Ritter. So, again, he would not be soliciting a minor if he was still in prison serving out his 6-year sentence for the first time, seeing consequences for any of his actions. But okay, maybe Andrew Tate isn't good enough for you. What about another? What about another person pardoned by Trump, caught up in another child abuse case? J6 rider pardoned by Trump remains jailed in child abuse case. Authorities say they have evidence that David Paul Daniel, 37, sexually exploited 2 girls in North Carolina. Okay, well, maybe that's not it. Well, how about this one? Maryville man pardoned for participation in January 6th insurrection still faces life sentence for plotting to kill FBI agents, or as some people might call that, terrorism. Knoxville, Tennessee. Edward Kelly is one of the more than 1,500 people that President Donald Trump pardoned for their crimes in Washington, D.C. Kelly was convicted on several charges after joining with others to throw a Capitol police officer to the ground and using a piece of wood to smash a window. So this is what you would imagine would be on the worst side of the spectrum. This is a person who is both attacking police officers, beating them with weapons, and then smashing the windows to storm and overthrow the government. And he has such moral conviction to do that, that it had to go further, include a targeted campaign against the FBI. I don't feel bad for what I did, he said. I was fighting for my country that day. I mean, the election was obviously rigged. If someone doesn't believe that it's rigged, then they either need to get informed or pull their head out of their sand. So we're pardoning people. Usually when you pardon somebody, the idea is that they learn their lesson, or that there's some extenuating circumstances that makes it so that, something went wrong here. This is somebody who beat a cop with a weapon, smashed windows, said, I'll do it again. We pardoned them. FBI agent plot. He was convicted in both cases, the cases around the FBI agent and the cases around January 6th. By the way, the plot was specifically to go after FBI agents investigating him. It wasn't like, I'm going to go after FBI agents who were involved in some horrific. No, it's, they're investigating me. I'll just off them. Was that not good enough for you? What about Emily Hernandez? This is the first woman of the list. Hey, I'm equal opportunity. I consider myself a feminist. Do we believe Emily Hernandez is a feminist? Well, she certainly believes in a woman's ability to do things that are traditionally male-dominated fields, like drunk driving. She was sentenced over a deadly drunk driving crash post-January 6th. A Missouri woman who was charged with participating in the January 6th Capitol riot was recently pardoned by Trump, was sentenced to 10 years in prison for causing a fatal drunk driving crash in 2022. Emily Hernandez, Sullivan, Missouri, was arrested in January of 2022 after a crash on the Interstate 44 in Franklin County, according to previous report from USA Today. Victoria Wilson, 32 at the time, from St. Clair, Missouri, was killed in the crash, and her husband, Ryan Wilson, at the time, was seriously injured. A GoFundMe was set up to support their 10 and 15-year-old son. Now, look, some of these cases, when we talk about pardoning, it's not, hey, we're letting you out of prison. What we're doing is cleaning criminal records. And so what we're doing is we're saying that these people are not deserving not only of the actual punishment, the time in prison, the rehabilitation, we're in America, but the rehabilitation that's supposed to be associated with that. You also don't deserve to have this follow you for the rest of your life. And sometimes when you're involved in like plea bargains, you hear something like that, like, hey, maybe we can have this negotiated to this. We don't want this to follow you for the rest of your life. Good cop, bad cop. But this is essentially Trump saying you're not going to be punished. And not only are you not going to be punished, but you're not going to have this follow you. So that when, cops pull this up, that's not going to come back on your record. Mind you, Trump knew that he could choose an option where it stays on its record because he commuted the sentence of Enrique Tarrio and some of the coup plot leaders, but he didn't commute his sentence for the majority of them. For everybody else, he just pardoned. For everybody who participated in direct violence, they got pardons. For everybody who plotted, they got their sentences. So they could have commuted their sentence, still denying them the punishment, but by the very least, keeping something on their record saying, oh, this person tried to overthrow the government. That seems important to know. But no, apparently not at all. And when you allow people to escape responsibility, that type of mindset transfers to other types of behavior. How you engage in the law and its disregard in one area can spiral out into others. Not all the time, but when it comes to something as serious as governmental overthrow, I guess drunk driving seems minor in comparison. By the way, I mean, we could just keep doing this all day. U.S. acting attorney in Florida moves to dismiss unrelated felony charge against January 6th defendant Daniel Ball, another man who was pardoned. Look. Wait, this is another one. Former January 6th defendant found guilty of reckless homicide, non-first-degree murder over fatal crash in 2022. January 6th records of, oh my God, criminal records of J6 rioters pardoned by Trump include domestic violence. Look, okay. I can keep doing this. Capitol rioter arrested for Virginia home invasion after presidential pardon. Centralville's Zachary Allen, pardoned for his Capitol riot role, is the latest to have legal trouble after receiving a pardon. Northern Virginia man who was pardoned by President Trump for his role in the January 6th attack in 2021 has been arrested in connection with a home invasion less than 4 months. Less than 4 months. That dude got back to work after his release. And this one probably threw me off the most. Arrest made in copper wire theft in Arcata. It was another J6er pardoned. From everything for copper wire theft to DV cases, DUI, manslaughter, violent shootouts with police. I mean, choose your own adventure novel with the type of crimes that these people are engaging in. If you tell people that you will not only get away with no punishment when you engage in this type of crime against your nation, but that you will not have that follow you, that you have them, their pardon, you know, won't be commuted, it'll be pardoned. And then you stop that and you say, not only that, but you deserve social credit. You're the victim. You're the political prisoner. You're the one that deserves money. Hell, I remember hearing people in the MAGA circles near the top talking about reparations for these people. Donald Trump openly talked about the idea of not only giving them the social clout that gets them podcast money, that gives them GoFundMe money, that gets them all types of, give and donate money, but also gives them the opportunity to get reparations from who? The American taxpayers who had to pay to fix the windows they smashed? It doesn't make any sense. This isn't a law and order presidency. This is I guess you could say a law and order based on loyalty presidency. You follow laws and order unless you show the loyalty that therefore the laws and order no longer apply to you. Mind you, these people were treated with much more reverence and much more dignity than the people that they were chanting to hang, like Mr. Mike Pence. This is something that was so across the wire that J.D. Vance didn't even want to entertain it on the campaign trail, and the inevitable outcome has happened. When you pardon a bunch of violent psychos, they still behave like violent psychos now who thinks that they can't be touched. They behaved accordingly. My gosh, so many of them, right? So many of these cases.